Hi everyone, today's video I'm going to be showcasing my most used attack teams in Colosseum. And I wanted to start off with Monolight first because this was my very first attack team that I had, well, my very first Colosseum team at all. I'm using Earth Necklace on Future Princess right now because I recently just got it, but you can use a Light Mirror Necklace and also a Dusk Ring, which I've both used recently in the past. For Elnor and Gabriel, you definitely want to use your tankier accessories just because I like to keep them out front. And for MK99, you can use a sharpshooter or goggles. It's really up to you. So our first match against, the first defense we have is actually against a future lead. And I like to use my future princess lead. I like to use my Gabriel out front to bait out the future princess. So my future princess is able to taunt first. In this scenario, my MK99 is usually doing the most damage while Eleanor and Gabriel are for support. They do sometimes die when I'm using this team, but the most important thing is that your Eleanor survives, and it's okay if Gabriel dies. The next one is the same team composition, but this time in different positioning, and again you can see that my Gabriel is out front. This way their future princess will target Gabriel first, and my future princess will be able to target their future princess and taunt first. Now, this team can be risky just because everybody is so squishy, especially Gabriel. If you're looking now, she's almost died. But that's why you really want tankier accessories on both Eleanor and Gabriel. The next team is against Lina team, I think. And against these Lina teams, I like to make sure that, well, in this scenario, for instance, I like to make sure that their range dealers are targeting my Gabriel and Elnor, and that way their Lina won't actually try to get to my back line. I like them, the way I figure is if Lina gets closer first, then she'll back off later. This one, again, I had my future princess up front and everybody else in the back. As you can see, Lina did back off later, and then she started walking up and she got hit by my future princess weapon skill. And that's why I like to, have everybody in the back and have Lina, Cam, and Ara just come closer for my future princess to taunt them and make them come back. In this one I have a Lina team with 2 tanks, and you can use Monolight against a Lina team with 2 tanks. It's just really position dependent. So I had it so that my future princess would taunt both their arena and future princess at the same time, and it worked pretty well. I think this is the last one. The same idea, but this time I'm targeting their future princess while everybody else is targeting my Gabriel. And Monolight usually works really well against FP future princess lead, as long as there's not another tank, because I think when there's another tank, it's like say Ogma, it can mess things up with taunts. So I like to use a different team against those kinds of defenses. And we won. Anyways, let's move on to the next team that I got. Okay, for my next team, I think this was my second attack team that I used, which was a Lina team with Gabriel, Future Princess, and MK99. Back when Lina first came out, I figured that you really had to get her if you want to stay relevant in Colosseum, just because she was so dominant in Colosseum, and so I had her. And this team I used against other Lina teams actually. When my future princess team couldn't get the job done, I would use this against Lina teams. And you can see here that it's mostly used against other Lina teams with Cam, MK99 as well. And I like the Gabriel variant just because she chains easier. So say Lina, your Lina gets chained, Gab can use her chain even though your Lina is chained, and I think it was much better as an attack team rather than defense team against Kamael. I also use this against Lina teams with 2 tanks, especially when my Monolight team couldn't get the job done. I didn't have a Monodark team at the time, because I know that everybody was using Monodark team against Lina team with 2 tanks. But here the main goal really is to make sure that their tanks don't taunt before your tank does. And so what I would do is I would position my MK99, my Gabriel, and my Lina in a way that their tanks taunted last. Here's another one. This time their future princess is targeting my MK99, and so you can see how both Agma and future princess go all the way to the back line before they're actually taunt, and you can see them, run back to my future princess because my future princess taunted first. And yeah, this Lina team that I use mostly just against other Lina teams. See here, both of them get chain or weapon skilled, but my MK9 cleans it up. And I think that's it. But yeah, this team, just because I didn't have Monodark at the time, this was what I used, and it worked out pretty well, but it did take a lot of figuring out, especially when it came to positioning against Lina teams with 2 tanks. And so the third team I'm going to showcase here is the Monodark team, and this is probably the most reliable, stable teams used in attacking, just because you have two taunts going off, even though you only have 1 tank. Noxia's summon can be used as a pseudo tank, and she can take quite a bit of damage before she dies, as you can see here. Now this composition usually excels most against teams that have 2 tanks, like Lina teams with 2 tanks. Definitely not against Monolight. But you can see the strength of this team is Arabelle's chain skill and weapon skills. She can just reach the back line pretty easily, and you don't have to worry about positioning too much, just because with Monolight you want to make it so that your MK99 can hit the back line, but with Monodark, you're guaranteed to hit the back line with Arabelle's weapon skill. Now, nowadays I only use this team against Lina teams with 2 tanks, or Lina team with no MK99 or Gabriel. As you can see here, they have the Lina Kamael version with Ara and Future Princess. Now, especially, like this team right here, 2 tanks, it's pretty brain dead, because you can just position your Noxia kind of back, and then, since Noxia, the way her AI is that she'll stop and summon her golem or summon first, and so that can kind of make it so that their tanks don't taunt first, which is very important. You always want to make sure that your tank is taunting first. That way, your units won't get dived on by Future Princess or Agma or Rina. Here is a variant where I'm using Mia with instead of Claude. And so this is really good if you have a little princess figurine, just because your Agma gets really tanky from the party skill buff, and also from Mia sustaining him. In this clip here, though, my defensive stats aren't really the best, so you can see that my Agma gets really low before I can finally kill their future princess. But again, I think this is a really good showcase of Arabelle's, just her offensive ability, because she's the only main damage dealer, and she's just carrying the whole team. So I think if we're talking about, the teams, the Colosseum attack teams that everybody should build, definitely Monodark and Monolight. I feel like nowadays Monolight's a little more situational, but Monodark is definitely more universal and more helpful. I do think that had I had a Monodark team during the Lina meta, it would have made things a lot simpler and a lot easier. Nowadays, though, the meta is leaning towards a melee defense with some Lina defense teams, and with that, with those kinds of defenses, a Future Princess lead team is the best, I think, just because you chain once, you weapon skill once, and by then hopefully all of the other units in the enemy team are almost dead or basically dead. And so in the next video, I'm going to showcase some of the melee teams that I use against these melee defenses, and also some niche teams that I like to use as well. Okay, thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you on the next video. Goodbye.